We're going to be learning and hearing from experts and innovators across the country focused on catalyzing innovation in offsite construction.
Let's go check it out.
Hi, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. Ivory Innovations and Modex, together with our partners, are excited to bring you an educational webinar focused on catalyzing innovation in offsite construction. Today, we'll learn about how we can use new building methods, some of the most innovative ones from across the country, to help us build more affordably, more efficiently, and more sustainably as we think about addressing the housing crises that we have today in our communities and how we together can solve them and think differently about our future. Ivory Innovations is a nonprofit with the mission of catalyzing innovation in housing affordability. We are a convener, we are a collaborator, and we invite you to join us on this journey as we learn about the different techniques for building more affordably. One of the ways that we think about housing affordability is really across three different disciplines. We think about innovation in construction and design, in finance, and in regulatory and policy reform. Together, these three different disciplines help us realize some of the most interesting ideas and some of the most novel solutions for addressing housing crises. Each community has a challenge when it comes to housing affordability. We know this. And so how do we think differently and how do we work together to bring new ideas to fruition? What can we learn today as we think about bringing some of these ideas from Washington, D.C. back to your city, back to your state, or back to your home region when it comes to building affordably, building sustainably, and building efficiently?
Modex is an advisory, education, and exchange platform. We use a network effect with various partners in order to try and move forward industrialized construction for housing in the United States and beyond. The reason that we're partnering with Ivory Innovations on this webinar is Modex sees Ivory Innovations as a key partner in trying to advocate, but also especially educate the various constituents to address innovation in housing. And our focus is on off-site industrialized housing, and that's a component of it. But that topic also has a lot of tentacles that move out into the ecosystem, including policy, finance, production methods, that we think Ivory Innovations is a key partner in addressing these issues and really bringing the parties together to try and come up with solutions to help solve those issues.
Offsite is an interdisciplinary approach to housing. It is not just factory production. It is not just robot arms and 3D printing. It really is a change in mindset about how we deliver housing. It requires decisions that are made earlier. It requires for continual improvement, which means we need to be looking at what we've done. So it really requires all of the stakeholders involved, including residents, to think differently about housing in order for these innovations we've had for 100 years to deliver the promise of quality, sustainability, and affordability.
Volumetric modular tends to be on the basis of taking as much of the on-site construction scope off-site as possible. This is usually comprised of building full three-dimensional volumetric modules where the walls and the ceiling and the roof are connected in the factory, and the output is an entire unit or part of a unit that is then put on a truck and transported to the site. One of the more hybrid approaches is panelized or kit of parts, where you're doing some of the same work. You're often building out entire wall panels or floor and ceiling elements, but not necessarily connecting them at 90-degree angles. And so an advantage you get is that you, while transporting, can actually stack them, and you're not shipping air, as it's usually referred to for modular, and still simplifying the on-site assembly quite a bit. And you're getting some mix of the productivity potential gains of the factory setting while still reserving a decent amount of the work on site. And then one of the most nuanced approaches, what I call kit of parts. Some also refer to it as one-dimensional because you're building out individual building components. You could think of this as structural frame components or brackets between the connecting pieces, manufacturing them first and shipping them individually. This is the closest to traditional on-site construction, but a lot more of the emphasis is on simplifying those pieces and building from a standardized kit of parts so that you're allowing more design flexibility while still taking advantage of some of the pre-manufactured value off-site. 3D printing, similarly vague umbrella topic, but generally using 3D printing technology to do some of the work of off or on-site construction. And so whether or not this counts as prefabrication or industrialized construction or off-site construction depends on who you ask. It can definitely be done in a variety of ways. I've seen 3D printers used in a factory setting to build out some of those individual components. So could be building out the bracket needed to connect two pieces of wood in a factory assembly process. I've also seen, in some examples, entire homes 3D printed on-site where they are permanently attached to a foundation.
Another sort of definition I also want to clarify for off-site construction is terminology around what one might call industrialized construction versus off-site construction. So industrialized construction is utilizing the principles of manufacturing and improvement for construction. That can be done on the job site, that can be done in the factory, right? It's using data, it's using continuous improvement, it's using some of the operations regarding efficiency of labor and allocation of labor in a way that mimics what might be done in a factory, but you could do that on the job site or you could do that in the factory, industrializing it. The other off-site is, as it sounds, it's things that are done off-site. Why people should care about offsite is because we have a significant challenge in our country, and that is construction productivity continues to decline, has since 1964. That's been reported on by McKinsey, by Stanford Center for Integrated Facilities Engineering, and others. And in order to overcome that, we're trying to find solutions to that. It's been demonstrated that the manufacturing sector has been able to overcome productivity challenges, right? Construction has not been able to take advantage of technology and manufacturing sensibilities. So off-site construction, industrializing housing construction, presents that opportunity. You're applying manufacturing principles to the construction sector. And we see great potential in overcoming those things.
Innovation in codes really means looking at the opportunities to address challenges both at a societal level and an industry level. So things like workforce issues, sustainability, resilience, all of those challenges that we face as an industry and as society. Offsite is a great innovation opportunity through the construction industry to address many of the societal issues that we're facing. We see challenges on the affordability and availability of housing. We see challenges in meeting sustainability requirements. We see challenges in the construction workforce. And so offsite construction really presents an opportunity to address a lot of those challenges. The issue is assuring that codes and standards actually enable those things to happen.
The fundamental challenge for the housing market is a lack of inventory. There's a lot of different estimates of how much short we're in terms of the overall market. My team believes that the deficit's about 1.5 million homes. There's some estimates that suggest it could be as high as 5 to 8 million. So the question for the industry, the challenge for the industry is really how do we increase supply given the fundamental constraints that the industry faces?
One of the biggest advantages of off-site construction is that it lowers the labor costs of building housing. So if we think of all of the components of homes, there's the land, there are the building materials, and the labor. And we know that off-site construction allows houses to be built faster and with fewer workers. So this can be really helpful both in places where we have a shortage of construction workers and we just can't find enough people to build, or in places where labor costs are a big part of construction. So if we think about cities like Philadelphia and Baltimore, often there's land available and the land is pretty inexpensive, but actually getting the house built in site is a big deal. This can also be helpful in smaller towns where you don't have sort of large economies of scale and a lot of construction workers on site. So for smaller towns and rural areas, off-site construction can often be really helpful.
We believe that off-site construction will reduce the cost of producing housing. And one way it does that is that building the housing, either the home or the components of a home, whether they're panels, windows, etc., in a factory setting allows those who are working in that setting to not be exposed to, let's say, environmental hazards. So if you're on site, for example, in a conventional site building the home, and there's weather issues or there's temperature issues. In an off-site factory setting, one way to avoid that is to utilize factories for building these components or the homes themselves. It's safer, it's faster, it's more efficient. The other advantage is that, as I said before, the ability to train on site.
Today, we're at the Innovative Housing Showcase on the Mall in Washington, D.C. Let's go check it out.
Hi, welcome. I'm Payal Gandhi with Connect Homes. Come on in. We are California-based. We're prefab modular home builders. This is our smallest format home. It's the Connect 1, 460 square feet. We're gonna head over here in the bedroom. As you can see, super spacious, floor-to-ceiling glass, high ceilings. We've got room for appliances, stacking washer dryer. Really cool, mini split system. It just makes every room controllable. Dishwasher, stove, everything you can imagine for awesome modern living. We are architecturally designed, award-winning, founded by architects, and really, can deliver efficiently. Super spacious, again. All the finished work comes on site. It's a fully complete module. So what's incredible is we don't just build for homeowners and developers, we also build supportive housing solutions. We're taking the same principles of industrialized construction and applying it to critical housing needs.
Dennis Steigerwalt is the CEO of the Housing Innovation Alliance. Let's hear what he has to say about how developers in his network are thinking about offsite construction methods and adopting them and incorporating them into their businesses.
There's a lot of companies that are within our network that we're here to visit their showcase and see what they're doing to promote innovative technologies and building practices in the built environment. But more specifically, we're really interested to see what's happening in offsite construction from a panelization and modularity perspective. So we're going to have an opportunity to visit a lot of those companies I know that are directly tied to the Ivory Innovation Group as well throughout the course of the next few days.
Hello, I'm Marianne Casado of Cypress Community Development Corp, and we are standing right now in the National Mall in a small accessory dwelling unit that we designed and built in less than a week. Come on in, come see it. So we're standing in the living room now. This is a 540 square foot accessory dwelling unit. It's 1 bed, 1 bath. It came panelized, so each of the walls came in a single piece. The floor came in 3 different pieces. The roof came in 3 pieces. It came pre-finished and ready to be fully installed. The shell was installed completely in 1 day, and it took a couple other days to seal the cracks and finish it off. But within less than a week, we've had a fully functional house. This is the kitchen here, full kitchen with the full suite of appliances in a real house. If this were not a showcase, these would be real. But it lives large, and we want to create a place that you immediately come in, you feel dignified, you have your own retreat from the world. So one of the reasons why we're showing this house is to hopefully reform federal policy regarding disaster housing. And we know disasters are coming, it's a given. We don't know when and where, but we are not prepared. So we're hoping to create a new law that allows or adjusts the Stafford Act to incentivize accessory dwelling units to be rapidly deployed. The exhibit here is to show what you can do within a week with a panelized system, and we're hoping that the federal government will stockpile units for immediate deployment so the short-term solution can be part of the long-term rebuilding.
Hi, I'm Armel from Kitswitch. We're a San Francisco-based company, and we design and deliver ready-to-install apartment interiors to turn empty structures into homes in a way that's quick, that's convenient, and that's predictable. So every time we talk to housing developers or contractors, we keep hearing time and time again that interior fit-outs are costly, they're unpredictable, and they result in a lot of coordination between different trades. And these are issues that are only going to get more pronounced with growing cost and labor shortages. And so that's where we come in, and at Kitswitch, we design the building blocks of a home not by their trade, like cabinetry and plumbing, but rather by their function. So, for example, our first product line of modular kitchens only has 3 products in it. Effectively, a module to clean, store, and cook food. And from these modules, you're able to install them in endless configurations, just picking and choosing what you need from our product library. And then these products get pre-manufactured and pre-assembled and are shipped and installed on-site in just 1 day. And so instead of having interior fit-outs or kitchen renovation projects that take weeks, if not months, if you're lucky, we're able to really condense down that schedule and improve that turnaround time, reduce a lot of mistakes and a lot of coordination, and effectively what that results for the affordable housing developers that we partner with is improved cost, improved quality, improved performance on their projects. And this, of course, using a product that is fully electrified, that uses sustainable materials, and that's done through sort of multiple partnerships, making sure that everyone across the value chain from design all the way through to delivery can benefit from using a standardized, ready-to-go solution. And this is so important to pay attention to. Within the housing sector, we obviously need to be building more of everything at every single level. But we also have to remember that in the future, 80% of the buildings that we'll be using, we've already built them. And so thinking about how can we renovate those buildings, how can we make them more sustainable and decarbonize our existing building stock? And that's exactly what we do at KidSwitch, is we're able to create solutions to give buildings a new life from the inside out.
Hey everybody, my name is Brian. I'm the CEO at Module. We're here on the National Mall at Module's ADU, or Backyard Home. I'd love to show you more. Come on inside and join me. People might ask, what is a backyard home or an accessory dwelling unit? It's effectively a secondary housing unit that you can place behind a single family home. So at Module, we build mostly single family townhomes, small multifamily buildings, so 3 stories. But here on the National Mall, we didn't want to bring an entire 3-story house, so we built this ADU or backyard home. Why are ADUs or backyard homes relevant? It's a method to create more affordability and add density to neighborhoods in a responsible way. So that's kind of a little bit of background on ADUs. Our company Module is based in Pittsburgh. We design, build, and manufacture all-electric, energy-efficient modular housing. And so our customers are primarily, we call them mission-driven developers. So people like housing authorities, nonprofit developers, for-profit developers that are building affordable housing or workforce housing. And so this unit in particular, it's a little bit smaller, obviously. It does have a full bathroom. So we've got a full a shower, toilet, sink. Another aspect of our homes that I think we find really important and valuable is that we're building sustainably. So this home is all electric. There's no gas, no fossil fuels powering the house. We put in extra insulation in the walls and high performance windows, so that we don't have to, as my dad would say, heat and cool the neighborhood. Whether we're heating and cooling the house, that stays within the building. And then we use heat pump energy efficient systems. So you'll look on the wall here, we've got a mini split unit. We also have a small duct high velocity system that we use. These are both heat pump systems that are really efficient, and we really love those systems. Another aspect of our homes, we have an energy recovery ventilator, right? So because we build this house really tight with basically like a jacket of insulation around the outside, it can get stuffy if you don't properly circulate air. So what this device does is it's bringing fresh air from outside into the home and expelling stale air that's inside the house outside. That's called an ERV. And then we have a full kitchen in this ADU. This kitchen has an efficiency stove, it's got an efficiency fridge and some beautiful backsplash tile. Our director of architecture actually handmade the window trim with this beautiful oak, I think it is, so it's really nice. Another important thing about this home is that it was built in what we call our last mile lab. So the Last Mile Lab is an urban manufacturing facility in Pittsburgh that we own and operate. And at the lab, we partner with a nonprofit vocational training partner called the Trade Institute of Pittsburgh. So with the Trade Institute of Pittsburgh, they're a vocational training program. They work with people who have barriers to employment. And so what we said is, we're gonna build this thing, bring it to the National Mall. Why don't we work together on finishing out the inside? So this is actually a little plaque here from some of the students. There were, I believe, 10 students who worked on this unit, doing some of the trim work and the finishing. So we were really lucky to work with the Trade Institute of Pittsburgh in doing some of the final finishing touches on our ADU. So I think that's about the tour. It's not a very big unit, but we love being here as part of HUD, Ivory Prize finalist. You know, we think events like this are really important to educate the public, educate policymakers, and educate other members of the community, the important stakeholders, lenders, realtors, construction companies, architects. So we're excited to do that this weekend.
Hi there, I'm Brent. I'm with Bot Built. We're originally based in North Carolina, but we're here today in our nation's capital, brought out here by Ivory Innovations, the NHB, and HUD. And what we do is we build homes with robots. What we really do is use AI and computer vision technology to enable humans to build safer, build faster, and build more cost effectively so that we can help end the housing crisis. Builders that come to us know that what they're getting is built with robotic precision. They also know that their framers will have a safer life building with our housing components, built right here in America in factories where we can put robots near you for whatever you may need right away. Here at Bot Built, we enable humans by giving them robotic leverage, and we're building the future together.
Hi, my name is Gene Edelman. I'm co-founder of Azure Printed Homes. When people talk about housing and climate, it's always followed by the word crisis. We're going to solve both of these. This 3D printed home can be printed in 1 day and finished in the next 4 to 5 days, and it's printed from recycled plastic. So for every one of these homes, we use equivalent of over 100,000 empty water bottles to make. It's very scalable. It can come to any community here in America. And we manufacture them in our factory. It's very light. It gets on a flatbed truck and can be delivered literally anywhere. So we're 30% less expensive, 70% faster, and with a positive environmental impact.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ben Kaiser, and we just traveled here from Portland, Oregon with our idea, which is Path House. And Path House is a modular mass timber manufacturing idea to essentially take housing and use industrialized construction to create up to 50,000 housing units a year out of a facility that's very advanced in our great state of Oregon. And the way we're going to achieve those high numbers, that high volume, representing approximately 200 million board feet per year, is by essentially assembling all of the MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing components of the home directly in the bottom 10 inches. So what we're calling this is the smart cassette. And so everything is located down in the smart cassette. That's the electrical distribution, that's the plumbing distribution, that's the HVAC, heating, ventilating, cooling distribution. And in that way, we'll treat home manufacturing much like the whole automobile industry has done, and assemble in an OEM facility, much like a dashboard going into a Tesla. We're doing the smart cassette into housing. And it's under that paradigm, we can create up to 50,000 housing units per year. And then the ancillary benefits of that is, of course, utilization of mass timber, which is something we've been working at for about 9 years now. We're pretty much leaders in the United States. We've built some of the tallest buildings in the country, and we've realized that this is the best material to address the challenges in our country right now, twofold. One, housing crisis. The entire country has a dearth of housing, and we're all made aware of that every day in our cities. And two, of course, the advancing climate change issues. Much of what we're seeing here in DC, which is unfortunate, the smoke coming down from Nova Scotia. Canada should not be burning in June, everybody, and we all know that. And so we're doing our best part in the Path House team to capture as much carbon as we can into these modular housing units. So it's such a pleasure to be here at HUD's invitation with Secretary Fudge, and we're just appreciative that we're a part of this great assembly of innovators, much like ourselves, up and down the mall here in DC.
I'm Brian Stark with Steel and Spark. We have a sustainable off-grid housing unit behind us, so let's go take a look at it. So this is our SparkBox 2A, meaning that's an accessible unit. It's one of the only accessible units that we've seen on the market, so fully wheelchair accessible. It also is fully off-grid. So these boxes are dropped into your backyard without any permitting required, a long permitting process. We're in 400 square feet with 2 shipping containers, and this unit is fully off-grid with 25 kilowatt hours of Discover battery. This allows you to drop housing quickly in your backyard. It sets up in one day. There's no utility connections to it, there's no sewer connections, there's 1,250 gallons of fresh water storage. The toilet is incinerating. All of the water is stored into a gray water tank from the shower and the sink, and that gray water tank is 330 gallons, and you can use that for irrigation, any of your plants in the yard. The goal here is really to get housing out quickly and to be able to serve certain populations where I have an aging parent that I want close by, generational living. I have a child with special needs that I want to have independent living, or I just want to make some extra money and put this in the backyard and rent it out. Maybe I have a college kid that's come home that I really don't want in the house anymore. So those are kind of the market that we're really looking at to increase the amount of housing that's out there.
We are a net zero sustainable modular homes. We're trying to bring aerospace and automotive technology to construction. We want a Tesla is built every 43 seconds. We want to bring the same pace to modular homes. Our country has serious shortage of homes, and net zero modular homes can not only fix that shortage but also address the energy crisis. Our modular homes are not only faster to build, affordable, but they're also energy efficient and mold and pest resistant. So if you're in the market for bringing high quality homes quicker and affordably, you should contact Remo Homes. Thank you.
My biggest takeaway from walking the mall and checking out all these different exhibits is the fact that there's a ton of passion and energy in the industry. And there's a lot of people really looking at how they can do things differently, and not just for the sake of doing it differently, but truly to advance how we deliver house and home. I think one of the things I want to bring up here is the fact that the industry's got a bad rap, right? Everybody says we're not investing in enough innovation, but if you're out here walking this space and meeting these founders and the companies that are out here promoting these kind of technologies, I think you'll find that's very wrong. Of course, we can't change what's happened in the industry over generations, overnight, but what we see here is a demonstration that we're making promising steps to a better future.
We just heard from a number of innovators on the mall. Let's talk next about how you can bring this type of innovation back to your community.
Some of the key challenges, I think, from adopting more offsite methodologies includes things like, what are the code requirements? How do you get it inspected? If you're a module, how do you get it placed in downtown New York City? So, transportation, regulations, codes actually are more impactful, I think, than the innovation side of where we are today. Now, there's some great innovation out there that's trying to get around all that, which is fantastic as well. But it's a challenge. We need to collectively work together to make it easier to implement offsite wherever that construction is going to take place.
In some ways, it's worth kind of taking a step back. I mean, you look at the numbers and, you see that manufactured housing, 7%, about 7% of all new production. You look at within single family, you look at panelized modular type building, 2% of single family completions. Looking at multifamily buildings, again, another 2% of multifamily construction. You might think that, in the economy in which we're in, particularly coming out of the Great Recession, that we would see a larger footprint. But in fact, that's actually not the case, at least according to the data.
To grow innovation, to support innovation, particularly existing innovation both in the US and what's coming from abroad, what we're finding is that really both the builders, architects, and local officials, municipal and state officials, can do a lot today to create an environment of support. So we were fortunate to work with states like Minnesota, Washington State, Utah, Salt Lake City, to really help understand, and just by clarifying what offsite is, educating folks, allows for better use of an existing innovation technology and getting better results. So we're happy to say, for example, the city of Minneapolis, after a course that we developed with their stakeholders, is able to finish 16 new units of public housing on city-owned land, for example. And all that took was clarifying what offsite is, working with existing manufacturers in that state, working with existing stakeholders, and really building those bridges.
The planar systems of panelization, three-dimensional, volumetric, we really consider those to be offsite solutions that are in the service of industrialized construction. What are some of the first steps that stakeholders can take in learning about offsite and implementing offsite in their practices? First, I think we need to understand that off-site construction really is, it's a paradigm shift. It's a different way of thinking and approaching construction. It takes a lot of pre-planning. It takes thinking about housing as a platform approach, right? A design of a system that could be implemented across many different projects. That's not how construction happens in the United States usually. And so it is what we might call slightly disruptive to the process of construction. And that impacts developers, that impacts the architects, that impacts the engineers, impacts the procurement process for materials. So across that supply chain of delivering housing to the market, it really is a different way of thinking and a different way of working. Because of that, much education is needed by all the stakeholders if you're going to engage in this. MODEX actively participates in that process. We educate regularly different groups, regulators, developers, architects, contractors. We do that through webinars, but also through our B2B consulting and our advising. Ivory does that by offering these webinars and this information to try and bring people up to speed. But nothing is as educational as doing it. And we often argue for the power of three, which is if a developer or a contractor or an architect wants to get involved, do it for 3 projects. And then you build some knowledge across that system and a collaborative framework to start to work within and advance this forward, always taking the lessons learned from each project into the next one to continually improve it. That is the basis for a manufacturing logic that we advocate for. One thing I would say regarding the future of off-site construction and how people can get engaged in this is I do see it not as ubiquitously an inevitability, but a market segment is inevitably going to emerge in this area. We've seen that abroad, right, and internationally. And so it's really, I think, a competitiveness question. It's a relevancy question for businesses to say, I ultimately have to learn about this in order to be competitive moving forward. So that would be my answer with regards to learning about it is you want to stay relevant, you need to get engaged in this process and try it out. How do you reduce your risk in that process? I think getting as educated as possible going into it so you're not blind to the process, and also being real, saying, you know, I may not make money on my first one. I might lose, but I might break even on the second, and then I'm going to earn profit on the third.
The other things that local policymakers can do is to find ways to help increase the demand for off-site construction. One of the big barriers is that off-site production means have to have a steady source of demand in order to make it worthwhile to invest in a factory. So if localities can create mandates that public buildings and buildings that are built through using on public land have to adopt off-site construction methods, that's a way to build up the demand for that production capacity to be able to bring it to market. There's also ways in which localities can help promote examples of off-site construction that have happened, to build awareness of it, and to make builders and the general public aware of both the potential for bringing down the cost of housing and the fact that these homes are actually good, decent, attractive places to live and not cookie-cutter factory-built housing that might mean that people don't think that it'll be as acceptable.
For regulators, I think a couple things. I think it's first important to keep in mind that the challenge that we see in the housing market is around affordability. And off-site housing does have the potential to address many of the concerns related to high housing production costs. And so I think that can be a great motivator for going deeper in terms of understanding ways in which we can fashion the policy environment that's supportive of this activity. Now, specifically what that might look like, number one, again, engaging kind of in public-private partnerships that take advantage of the needs and the incentives of government, but also matches that with the ability of the private sector and others to really make that need come to fruition. A second thing is thinking about ways in which you can introduce subsidies, local tax subsidies that can actually encourage more of this activity. And then kind of a third way, and certainly this isn't exhaustive, but a third way are ways in which you can, with subsidies, perhaps mandate a degree of off-site construction in a larger project.
Local officials really need to look at the whole package of their regulations around housing production to figure out whether there are hidden poison pills that can make it hard to do off-site construction. That might be in things like zoning, it might be in things like the requirements around site review, it might even be things like utility hookups or fire codes. So really pay attention to all of the details, talk to some developers who've tried to do this and figure out what the hurdles are, and then make sure that you fix those.
So I think there's a couple things going on within the regulatory landscape of offsite construction. For the most part, across the U.S., offsite construction is regulated at the state level. So the state agency has responsibility for any offsite construction project. Each of those state programs vary differently. So some focus just on volumetric, some do focus on panels as well. Some allow the use of third-party agencies like NTA to help smooth that regulatory process. Some don't. So that certainly creates some confusion. And that's really why the ICC MBI standards exist, is hopefully to smooth out some of those issues, particularly as we're looking at factories that are going to serve regionally. We want to make sure that they have that efficiency in process, that certainty in how their different products are going to be dealt with. So if you're in one of the states that has a statewide program, certainly consult the agency responsible for that. Third parties are a great resource as well, so NTA can certainly help out to really understand that landscape. And then if your state doesn't have a statewide program, it's really left to the local code official to really understand what's the offsite construction, how does it function within my community. Which can frankly be a disincentive for the use of offsite construction because the developer or the manufacturer needs to work with that local AHJ every time. And so another opportunity for the standards to help smooth that process as well. And again, third parties can be a help in that way, but it's still working individually, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. In looking at the use of both on-site and off-site components in a project, for states that have statewide programs, the off-site construction elements will be under the responsibility of the state. So they'll monitor the factories either through a third party or directly, and they'll actually put a label on the off-site construction components to say it has gone through this robust regulatory process. And then once those components get to the job site, the responsibility then falls to the local code official to monitor the interconnectedness of those off-site construction components, how they're assembled together, any of the site work, and then any on-site components as well. So you'd have a sort of a dual process for the off-site construction piece and for the on-site construction piece.
So when it comes to working with local officials, we look at it as a partnership. So our job is to ensure conformity when it comes to the building codes, and we're not trying to take the locals' job, but in a lot of cases they don't have the resources to go out and do inspections in different states or even in some cases all around the world. So we have inspectors that will travel around the world and do those inspections for those local officials. Talking about the process of what a manufacturer does when they interact with NTA, it starts out with the design review. So we're going to work with the manufacturers to review their prints and approve their prints. And then our inspectors will go into the facilities and do an initial certification. So we're going to go in and look at, we're going to do a building code inspection, make sure that everything they're doing matches the plans that were approved. In addition to that, we're doing quality control assessments. We're making sure that they have all the processes in place in their factories so that even when we're not in the factory, they're building conforming product.
I would say, learn from your neighbors, talk to your other state officials, see, look at the states that are really doing a lot to move housing forward, that are really removing the barriers to housing of all types, innovative and otherwise, that are, making sure that, the innovation of the industry is allowed to come through. And then also talk to us. We love to hear ideas. We love to hear best practices. Our policy and development and research team, is always conducting research in the space and uplifting ideas with the various publications and events that we have, like the showcase. And so in that, we love to be a convener and a consolidator of good ideas and helping best practices cross-pollinate.
If you're passionate about some of the ideas that we've talked about today, join us. Our mission at Ivory is to bring others along on the journey to address housing affordability challenges using new solutions. If you want to get things done in your community, partner with us. Join us in Salt Lake City, learn from MODEX, and continue this journey of thinking about how we can build differently together for the future. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope this has catalyzed a few new ideas for you, and we look forward to continuing our partnership and learning together on how we can build differently and build better. Learn more at ivoryinnovations.org/offsite.